yesterday. This bad movie seems so far away. Now I'm afraid that it is here to stay. Oh, I believed in yesterday. Why'd they have to go make this film? I couldn't say. They did something wrong. Now I long for yesterday. Okay, I'm being overly harsh at this moment. Pardon me, I just got out of the gym. But I have thoughts on this movie, and some pretty negative ones about one instance of it. But I wanna hold off on that. I wanna put a pin in it, because as a respected and unbiased film critic, I want to talk about this movie separately from the major issue I had with it, because it is relatively, compared to other films, compared to other issues, it's a relatively small thing. Moreover, it is a thing that seems to just insult me, that I'm taking personally, even though I know that's not really what it was meant as, but it's what it came across as to me. So we're going to get to that. I'm going to talk about it, believe me. But before I do that, I want to talk about this film on its own, the pros and cons, and then I will rant, okay? So if we're looking at this movie objectively, it is okay. I mean, that's basically all you can really say about it. It's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie. It has one of the best hooks that I've seen in a film in a while. It's got a very good hook. And it's just one of those typical films that kind of comes out almost every summer. That film that is kind of designed for the people who are bored by the, explosion, special effects, superhero film, Disney remake. People like my parents. My parents and I went to see it. Pardon me. Again, just got out of the gym. So on that level, it's not terrible. It's watchable. It has some enjoyable performances, but the major problem is it never really lives up to its hook. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the movie first. So if you don't know, which would be hard if you didn't, because again, this is one of the most memorable hooks in a long time. Our main character, Jack Mavabi, I think I'm pronouncing the character's name right, is kind of a struggling singer-songwriter. He has big dreams. He wants to go, he wants to be a star. The only person who believes in him is his long-suffering manager slash lady friend slash girl who's been in love with him all his life, but he doesn't pay her any attention. Pretty typical. And then one night, something very Twilight Zone-y happens. And in this film is very Twilight Zone-y. You feel like Rod Serling's going to pop up at any minute. Anyway, the world goes black for an instant. It comes back on, and when it comes back on, certain things are erased from history. They never existed. And the big one that the film focuses on is the Beatles. And this guy is the only person who remembers the Beatles, and now he is passing their work off as his own. He's becoming famous based on this, incredible, discography of work, and and it rides a pretty standard track. It's the fame and fortune aren't everything. It's great when it's coming up, but then you're going to compromise, and then people are only going to want you to do it for money, and then you forget where you came from, and the true joy are the people that you loved along the way. Basically, if you've seen Almost Famous, you've seen Rocket Man, you've seen any musical biopic, you have seen this movie. All right, and that I think is where the it's okay thing comes into play. is that you have this amazing hook of one of the all-time, depending on who you talk to and depending on who you're asking, one of the all-time, if not the all-time greatest band in history suddenly disappears. You're the only one who remembers their music. Now what do? That's a wonderful hook to hang a movie on. But this movie really doesn't do anything with that concept. It doesn't really do much with it, other than if he wrote their songs, people would love them and they'd think the album titles were silly and, all of that. And I think that's the greatest crime of this film, it's one of the greatest crimes, is that wasted potential. You had an opportunity to do two very different things. They could, depending on how they wanted to end it, because there's two ways they could have ended it. Either A, it's a dream, because it happens to him when he gets hit by a bus and all of that, and he wakes up and it's all happened. So A, it could be a dream, or B, in like Twilight Zone fashion, it could not be. It could be what's really happening. We have to live in this new world. All right. And either one of those offers you a great opportunity to do something really interesting with this premise. If it is a dream, then obviously, he wakes up. Boy, the camera's really bouncing. Sorry about that. He wakes up. He realizes through the dream he had that to write a great song, he has to look deep inside himself and, be honest to the girl he loves and all of that. A little cliche, and there have been films like that before, but, it would have been interesting, especially using the Beatles as kind of the guiding path. They don't go that way. They go the other way. It's not a dream. It's the real world. It's the world now. You got to live with this world where the Beatles don't exist and all this. Okay, great. Now you have a chance to tell an interesting concept about if the Beatles songs were being released today, brand new, just out, never heard before, how would they be received? How would the Beatles be received now if no one had ever heard of them? If so many people hadn't grown up with them, if they weren't such a huge part of, people like my parents' lives, how would their music be received by people? And they do a little bit of that. They do a little bit of, joking with, changing Hey Jude to Hey Dude and stuff like that, or making fun of the album titles. Sgt. Pepper, what is that? It's ridiculous. The White Album, well, that's not featuring a lot of diversity, So they do a little bit of that, but really it doesn't. Those are just jokes kind of thrown in there. They don't do anything. They don't go anywhere with that idea. It's it's very standard. Oh, gee, he learns that fame and fortune aren't everything, and you shouldn't take credit for other people's work. Well, thank you. So I think that is, in a completely unbiased, completely neutral opinion, that's the greatest crime of this film. Is that it has a great setup, and God, you know how much money it had to cost them to get Beatles music, to base this thing around the Beatles. I mean, their songs are expensive as shit. But they waste that potential. It's very standard, very basic. It's enjoyable. I mean, it's not, in terms of the characters, the acting, it's all perfectly fine. I mean, our main actor, whose name I don't recall, is, he carries the weight as kind of this everyman who kind of suddenly is handed the golden ticket and is trying to figure out what to do. His performance, oddly enough, reminds me kind of a Spider-Man character, either Spider-Man himself or any one of his villains, who are all everyday people, common criminals, whatever, who are suddenly given godlike powers and now go, okay, what do I do with this? So he does a really great job of playing that and making it believable that, hey, if you woke up and you were the only person who remembered Star Trek, Star Wars, Harry Potter, whatever, wouldn't you do the same thing? Who wouldn't do this? And what that kind of means. young lady playing his girlfriend, I think Liv Davis, I think is her name. I'm getting that wrong. She's pretty good. I have a bit of a bone to pick with her, which I'm going to get to in a second. Not with her, with the writing, but anyway, she's perfectly serviceable. She has that great kind of young, I say young, Keira Knightley's not that old, but that young kind of Keira Knightley charm, those big eyes, the bushy hair, that sweet little British girl thing that Keira Knightley was very well known for. I'm trying to move this, get it out of the sun a little bit. Sorry. So she's okay. Kate McKinnon is fantastic as, of course, the stereotypical bloodthirsty music producer who doesn't care about the artist or anything like that. They just see him as money. But she's honest about it. She comes right, yeah, I just see you as a bottom line. If I was rating this movie just, based on all that, I'd say, C+ job, not terrible, not excellent, nothing to really write home about, but a fine distraction. But something happened while watching this movie. A scene happened that just hit me. I have always been a movie person. I have seen hundreds upon hundreds, thousands, millions of movies in my life. Since doing these reviews, I've seen over, almost 100 movies a year. Okay, just about. And in that time, as anybody who's watched the show or watched my end of the year wrap-ups knows, I've seen movies I've hated. I've seen movies that intellectually insult me, that, talk to the audience like a fool. I've seen movies where the politics or the message offended me because it's like just so backwards to me. I've seen movies that I felt have taken things I've loved and chewed them up and spit them out. The Michael Bay Transformers, the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles, that kind of stuff. Until this movie, I believe I can honestly say I have not seen a film that I felt had one scene in it that walked right up and smacked me personally in the face. The only thing I can think of in recent years that has done something like that was Love, Simon with that. And I've gone on and on about Love, Simon, so I'm not gonna go back over that dead horse. But there's a scene in this movie that happens, and what they say in it, to me, and again, I'm gonna stress, this is to me. Most people would hear it and probably go, huh? What's he bitching about? But I'll explain what I'm bitching about here in a second. That, to me, really pissed me off. And that scene happened, and up until that scene, I was like, okay, fine, not perfect, not great, but it's not a bad film. But then that scene happened, and I went, done. Can't get back on board with you, movie. You've come up, kicked me in the balls, spit on me, and I'm done. So let me explain this scene, and I'm going to explain why it pisses me off. And I know there are going to be people out there going, oh, you're taking things too personally, why are you getting bad? And that's fine. I admit it may just be a me thing. But just the phrasing of this, the context of it just pisses me off. So at one point, our hero has a flashback to when he was, before the Beatles disappeared, and he was just a struggling musician, and he and his girlfriend, manager, love interest, whatever you want to call her, are driving back from a gig, and he's saying, I'm going to quit, I'm going to quit, I'm going to quit, I'm going to go back to teaching. This isn't going to happen, I'm going to go back to teaching. His girlfriend, Keira Knightley Light there, then stops the car and says to him, and I'm going to misquote, but only slightly, says to him, you can't go back to teaching because then you are going to give all of your energy and all of your creativity to those kids. And you'll never put it where it's supposed to be on you. You will she is using the fact that this guy, who was a fairly talented musician, fairly decent singer, was going to use his skills to teach kids as a bad thing, as a deterrent to him continuing. And at that moment, and that phrasing, I'm a little off with the phrasing, but that is pretty much the phrasing, is that you will be wasting your time, your energy, and your talent on those kids. And speaking as an art teacher, speaking as a theater teacher, somebody who on a year, not just the years I've been working at a public school, but the years I have worked for summer camps, the years I have worked for youth theater and community theaters, speaking as someone who has spent the majority of his professional life teaching kids movie, fuck you. Fuck you and everything you stand for. I'm sorry. And maybe I'm being too sensitive. But you know what? That is such a kick in the balls to every teacher who dedicates their time and talent to help teach kids, to help give kids a leg up. And I mean every teacher. But it's, you know, if you are a math teacher, if you are a science teacher, you are a history teacher, an English teacher, anything teacher, it means you have a talent. You have an aptitude for that subject, and you are trying to pass it on. And according to this movie is saying, well, fuck you. You shouldn't be wasting your time on those kids. You should be at NASA. How dare you try to get the next generation ready? But it is especially a kick in the balls to art teachers, to people like myself, like my colleagues in the art department back at White Station. It's a kick in the balls to every one of us, basically giving you that old line that if we were so smart, if we were so brilliant, why are we teaching? And you know what? And again, maybe it's just me, but I'm going to tell you straight up. I'm teaching because that is what I wanted to do. Because I was inspired by a brilliant performer named Jerry Harper who taught me. And the greatest thing he ever did, in my opinion, was he passed knowledge on to people. The number of people who learned from him, the number of people who looked at him as a mentor, as a god. Yeah, he was never famous. He never had, you know, a big starring role. The world didn't get to know what a great actor or a great person he was. But the people who knew him did, and we learned from it, and we take those lessons, and now I want to pass those lessons on to the next generation. And I made my decision at that exact moment. That is what I'm here to do. Not to be, you know, a big Broadway star, but to pass my knowledge along. And I'm sure all of my fellow teachers have had a similar experience. That we're trying to use the skills and the knowledge we've acquired. And I will tell you right now, no one, I can't speak for every art department area, but no one in our art department is a slouch. We have got some damn fine talent in that art department. From our art teachers, to our 3D art teachers, to our music teachers, choir teachers, myself, pardon me for being a little egotistical here, we have resumes that are exquisite. But according to this movie, and according to that statement, we are wasting our time. We're wasting our time and our talent on our kids. And again, that is the fucking phrasing they use. And here's the thing that really gets me. If that speech had been given by Jack, our main character, as part of his I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm egotistical phase of his development, then I wouldn't be so mad, because then he'd be proven wrong in the end. He'd realize that is where his greatest talent lies, is in passing things on to the next generation. You know, it would have fit with the theme of the movie. Because that is what he was trying to do, is pass the Beatles on to people who didn't know about it. So if he had given that speech and then realized how wrong he was and it was part of his redemption, I wouldn't be this mad. What I am mad about is that this speech about a artistic person wasting their fucking time and talent on their kids was used as a fucking pep talk. It was his girlfriend giving him the go in there, Rocky, and win one. You're a bum, Rock. You're too good to be a club fighter, Rock. You should be out there fighting the champion, Rock. That was her fucking Mickey speech to him. Don't waste your talent on the kids. And I'm sorry. Again, I'm probably taking this too personally. Maybe they meant something different, but from that fucking moment and that fucking phrasing, I said, fuck you, movie. Fuck you. So, like I said, if I was rating this one, I'd give this movie about a C+. But then that happened. And I'm not giving this movie a rating. I refuse to give this movie a rating. No, I refuse to give this movie a grade. Because I'd be wasting my time and talent on it. So, yeah. And then at the end, of course, he is actually a music teacher. He's back teaching the kids, he's teaching the kids Beatles songs, which again, just makes it worse, because once he comes clean, because he comes clean and has this big confession, I didn't write the songs and all this. So once it was clear he didn't actually have any talent, well, then it was okay for him to go and teach the kids. Because, it's always best if kids are taught by people who have no fucking talent and no fucking clue on what they're doing. It's better if, instead of me teaching the kids theater, somebody who studied it, has degrees in it, has awards from it, is a produced playwright. It's way better if you go get whoever draws the short straw between the janitor and the lunch lady. Because you don't want the kids taught by somebody who has talent. But once it's discovered he doesn't actually have talent, he's stealing someone else's talent, well, then it's okay for him to teach the kids. Fuck this movie. So, this movie doesn't get a grade. It doesn't deserve one from me. So, anyway, that's my review of yesterday. You might enjoy it. I did up until that moment, and then it lost me. So, that's it for me for this one. But thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me get this rant off my chest. Whew. All right. Feels better. I feel cleansed. All right. So, it's 4th of July weekend as I'm recording this, or it's about to be 4th of July week. And we got a certain arachnid who's swinging back into films. And we're going to go check him out, and hopefully it doesn't piss me off. Hopefully it undoes some of the damage this film did. So thank you for coming along. Thank you for serving as my therapist for this film. So until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.